Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to Somewhat Daily Tarot and Rune for the 10th day of February, 2020. Well, the energy of new beginnings on a Monday. Monday's a day for healing. It's a moon energy day, so water energy, emotions, intuition. So you can use all of that today as you begin anew. The astrological chart was done as of, I think, either 9:29 or 9:30 this morning. I think it was just turning 9:30. The moon's in the sixth house and Virgo, so that's different. Focus on health and well-being, and also on mundane tasks. There's an opposition with Mercury, so you're going to want to, again, think before speaking and avoid any provocative conversations. In other words, if you have issues to discuss, let it go for a bit, because this is just not the time. You want that. You don't want your in other words, you don't want the conversation to become so emotional that you can't really express your viewpoint. So give it a moment and wait for that to pass before talking to somebody if you need to. A Seska square with Saturn reinforces this patience today, and remain calm. There's something else further on. Let's see. Well, sort of relating to it when we get to Aries, or not Aries, but to Venus, because it's in the 12th house of Aries. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Not next. Let's talk about the Sun next. Still in the 11th house of Aquarius. Again, unconventional friendships maybe today. Let's see. A semi-square with Chiron, however, still you find it easier to withdraw from situations when self-expression is hindered. It's a little warm in the still room today. Let's see. We must be going to have a warmer day today, because usually it's freezing in here. My feet are terribly cold, so I got my slippers on, and everything is. I got all ready, and now I'm warm. So anyway, we'll fan a little bit. But anyway, Sun semi-square Chiron. You might feel it's easier to withdraw from situations when self-expression is hindered, or you might feel inhibited somehow. Now, that's probably going to relate also to the opposition between the Moon and Mercury. Again, just if it's not working, don't try to make it work. Let the conversation flow easily. If it's not going to do that, then that's your message. It's like, this is not the time. Sometimes timing has to really be there for any kind of a successful outcome to happen. So, again, just wait. Again, Mercury, 12th house Pisces, time for inner reflection. Venus, now we're to that, 12th house Aries. When things are in the 12th house, we're talking about taking, an inner focus. First house is outer focus, but basically, but because there's, there you're inviting everyone to look at you, here this is who I am, look at me, So that's your external aspect. But you get to the 12th house, and now it's time for inner reflection. So, you're going to want to slow down. You're going to want to think about things. Today, in terms of Venus, you're talking balance. And so you're going to want to reflect a bit to gain control. Again, likely having to do with what's going on with the moon, And also Virgo has that they're always focused on their health and well-being, sometimes to the point of being obsessive. And so, if you're feeling out of sorts, there could be some health reason why. Maybe you haven't been eating right, who knows, too much sugar, who knows. So just check in, find your balance, and then proceed on. Mars, 9th house Sagittarius, is going to be a focus on metaphysical issues or study today. So again, maybe you could find some enlightenment as to why you feel the way you do, so that the next time it happens, you can remember and say, and check in with yourself and say, is that maybe what's going on this time? And if it is, then, I'm just going to sit back. I'm going to wait. I'm going to let it pass. Check your biorhythm chart too, and see where all of that is. If emotions are low, then in the negatives, then, this is not a good time. Communication, all of that, intellect, if intellect's low, maybe you can't think clearly, so you just kind of want to pay attention to that. Jupiter, 9th house Capricorn, life takes on meaning. Again, that's from last week, is still there. Saturn's still in the 10th house of Capricorn. Again, reassessment of important areas of life, career in particular. 10th house is about career and profession. And, you know, Saturn asks us to slow down and reassess things. Make sure, and, you know, Saturday is always a good day to make sure that you took care of all the bills you needed to pay. You know, if it's that time of the month, you know, where you're having to do that. You slow down. Did I take care of everything? Did I make all my appointments? Did I call everybody back I needed to? You know, you check in and you see, you let everything slow down, you let your focus slow down, and you try to see what's going on, what you missed, what you still have left to do. You know, so it's kind of a taking stock kind of experience. You know, Saturn is, you know, father time, you know, that's Chronos. So you're basically slowing things down. Advancement could be possible in career right now. So again, if things are in flux, make sure you watch what you say, how you come across, and you might see some positive things happen there. And that's been going on now. Issues with career have been going on. Oh gosh, I want to say they started toward the end of December, but they definitely started coming into focus in January. So I just feel the first quarter of the year, first 3 months of the year are prime for new career opportunities. And so, you know, I think that's why we're still seeing it. So hopefully that will continue. So if you do need to make a change in that regard, you know that it could be something positive. So we have Uranus in the first house of Taurus still. I don't know if it's still. I don't think it was in the first house before. Extra energy available today, so remain open to change and adventure. Or maybe it was. Maybe that was. I didn't bold it. Or no, I think it was not in the first house before. So, but I did go ahead and bold what's been there for some time, and it's concerning. There's still a semi-square going on between, and it's a strong one, between Neptune and Uranus. And this is the thing that is the outlier or the underlying thing that above all else you need to pay attention to, okay? And that's guarding against deception or the long played con. The energy for the long played con, whether we're looking at it collectively or whether we're looking at it personally, even if it's the collective affecting you personally. In other words, what's going on in our country. The long played con has been going on in this country forever, not just now. I mean, it's been going on forever. So we've all been asked to buy a bill of goods that has never been viable, has never been appropriate. And now we're just seeing it on steroids, basically. And so I think what's happening in this 22 year, this cosmic builder year, I think what we're having is the awakening to what we don't want and to the ugliness of how all that can be when what we don't want runs amok, right? So go within and allow intuition and higher self to guide. You know when it's wrong. And if you're somehow finding yourself in support of what's going on, understand that you don't know what's going on. And that's the long played con or the deception that we need to guard against. Believing something that isn't real, believing the narrative we're told, when the opposite is what's always true. Okay? So I'm just going to tell you today, that's what you need to guard against. And this has been in effect for what now? Oh gosh, at least a couple of weeks or better. So this is something that's hanging around and that we need to be aware of. It is the underlying thing that's at the heart of everything we're experiencing is a long played con. Okay? So I guess that's it then on the astrology. I'm just trying to emphasize this because it's still there. And it's still happening. So if this is simply about the effect and how you feel about what's going on in our country, okay, that's one thing. But don't leave it there. Check in and make sure that there's nothing going on other than that in your personal life, okay? Because odds are there could be some deception at work. People want you to believe something that isn't true just to advance their own whatever, their own agenda, right? So check in and make sure that you're looking at all the areas of your life. And if you think something's going on, it likely is. So focus in, try to figure it out, and get in front of it. You know, don't let it affect you anymore. In other words, be the more savvy individual. If someone's trying to, pull something on you, diffuse it. Make sure it isn't successful, in other words. Do it from behind the scenes. Don't let them know. Be as deceptive as they are. Let them figure it out. Let them stand there and go, oh, I guess I got conned right back. Well, you're not conning them. They'll see it that way because that's how they see life. They're con artists, right? So they'll always see it that way. But that isn't what you did. You protected yourself, right? So again, if this is simply about what's going on collectively, well, okay, that's going to happen the way it's going to happen, right? We need to observe it for the message that it's giving us and then move away from it, right? But if it's not, if this is happening is somewhere in your life, then this is serious and you need to look at it. Now, things are up on the blog. The newsletter I sent out on Sunday, I'm going to go ahead and I'm not going to do another one for another 2 weeks. I'm going to go ahead and start that now because it seems evident that I need to start my seeds inside. So we were just talking to someone yesterday and they're doing it too. So it's like, okay, we're going to go ahead and get going on that, and we need to do some pruning. And so I'm going to be really busy, and I don't know that I'm going to have time to do them every week. So I think I'm going to go ahead and start every 2 weeks now. Go ahead, sign up for that. Lots of stuff in there that's not on the blog, and so I hope you enjoy that. The correspondence and astrological information has not gone up yet. I'm going to do that while I watch this when I'm, proofing it. But the weekly Rune and Moon is up. Over on Patreon. I think I put it on Medium, not just on the blog. So you can read it over in other places too. But there's also another post that I put up. It's called A Vampire on the Loose. And it's about energy vampires and what we need to be doing about it. And because there's a lot of that going on right now. Remember, Uranus semi-square Neptune, that's part of that energy so that we're having to deal with. So anyhow, I put something up. It's actually turned out pretty well. So if you want to check that out over in the blog, I'd love you to do that. So that's enough housekeeping for the day. Let's go ahead and get started and take our first card. I was shuffling a bunch a little while ago, so I don't have to do much right now. I started doing it again, because that's just what I do. I said when I shuffle, when I talk, and I thought, well, heck, I don't have to do that. So I already did that. Let's just bend the cards back since I was shuffling violently. We'll take our first three cards. If we need a fourth, we'll take it. If we want to get crazy like we did a couple weeks ago, we'll do 5. So in any event, let's take our first card. Gee, I was thinking, man, my hands are working, and then I blew it on the 12th card. I take the 13th one each time for randomness sake. But here we have the Lovers. We have a 6 energy with that. 6th card of the Major Arcana. Soul archetype card. We've been getting a lot of them. Get at least 1. Sometimes we get 2. It really, the other thing I did, oh God, I can't believe I forgot this. Part 2 of the Elder Futhark series over on Patreon, that's over there. So check that out. And you don't have to sign up for a tier anymore. You can just, if you're not already a paid subscriber, because it's a paid site, if you're not already that, then you can just pay whatever you want. I switched. I finally found where I could do that. I know this guy he's a Twitter friend, and he started a Patreon account, and that's how he did it. And so I thought, if I ever do that, if I ever do that. And then I did, I don't know, a few months later I did. And I wanted to do it that way. Just pay whatever you want. I don't care. I'm just doing it to defray blog costs. That's all. Because believe it or not, there are some, you have to pay for some things. Not everything's free. And so you have to pay for some things. And that's just to help to defray those costs. So, but anyway, that's up over there. It'll go live on YouTube in 3 weeks if you want to wait. But if you don't, and you want to get the second in that 3-part series, then go ahead and over there, because that's where it is. I put that up on Saturday. So we have the Lovers. Oh, we have Death. 13th card of the Major Arcana, Transition. Don't you love that flower? It's got 5 points as in a pentagram, and the top point is pointed downward into form. does not mean the devil. I know some folks have co-opted it to be that, but it does not. It just means our soul's focused is into form and is focused on the ego, okay? Where that the ego is maybe, or form or something. It's talking about physical life as opposed to our astral set, the astral side of self. That's really all it's doing. And so it's just issues of a physical nature when you see the pentagram pointed downward, or a focus on a physical nature or ego or something like that. So we have the 9 of Wands. So we're going to talk about the 9 of Wands first, and then we're going to talk about how Spirit's going to inform this guy and the choices he wants to make, because that's really what we're talking about here. 9 is about completion and endings. So something has happened. Something has happened, and now there's an end to it. You can see this demarcation line here, and you will see that literally in this form on certain cards. And how I interpret it is basically that was then and this is now. Okay. Sometimes you can see a demarcation line that might be implied. The demarcation line between, say, a throne and the people in front, standing in front of it. There might not be a line like this, but you would definitely see, some structure, some stone structure, maybe a step off of his throne, maybe. So maybe it's like a little raised area that you step up onto the throne, to get to it. But you're definitely going to see some kind of line, a demarcation line between, in that case, royalty and the peasantry and his subjects. Okay, so you're going to see that throughout tarot, but at least in the Rider-Waite, you see this demarcation line a lot. And so what we have there, either this is the he's been dealing with Wilf, Wands is the fire element, and so you're talking about will, creativity, new life, basically, Genesis. Although I typically view the Ace of Cups as that free-flowing Genesis. But there's been a struggle and a battle of wills, and he's bandaged there up on his head, so he's wounded. His clothes are a little bit tattered, it looks like. He's looking back furtively, like he's not sure. Does he have support? Does he not? Is there a truce? Is there not? He's not sure, is he? But something has ended. So some kind of conflict, a battle of wills, either within, maybe it's just within. And he's finally put things in order. Or it could mean that he's had a battle of wills with somebody else or a group of someone else's or something. And now, the staff he's not holding it fully aligned, is he? So things are not quite finished. But it bends toward the receptive side of self, his left hand, so the left side of his body. So we're going to say that bends toward allowing. So he's going to allow things to go forward as if they're okay, and maybe they are. Again, this could be having something to do with that Uranus semi-square Mercury or Neptune, where there's been some deception. And that's the thing, when you're dealing with people who are deceptive, and especially if you're one, nobody trusts these people. Ever, because every time you do, they prove that you can't, right? There's something seductive about the con man, okay? The con man, both people either want to be him because they think they have power, they're getting away with something, and there's somebody who wants to get away with something, and so they hang on to the guy who's so corrupt that because maybe it'll rub off on them, they'll get some of it, But the bottom line is if you're somebody who lies all the time, nobody will ever trust you because they can't. So if we're talking about, say, but let's just talk about this in terms of this is someone else he's had struggle with, not that this is not a struggle within. Actually, you know what? Let's take it from a struggle within, because we've got 2 major cards here. Let's do it that way. Maybe we've had a struggle within in terms of our will, and we have had a difficulty maybe seeing clarity, seeing the truth. Or maybe we've been trying to convince others of it. It's been a battle of wills. Maybe it's a battle of authority. I mean, it could be anything. Think anything willful. But what do you need to do when that happens? If you're engaged in a battle of wills all the time with somebody, you might come out on top, but what have you won? And that's kind of what this feels like. What have we really won in a situation like this? Whether it's with others, at least with the battle within, it's stopped. So if that's how we're going to view this, he's coming into balance, balancing the projective and receptive side of self, letting it bend toward the receptive. And I'm calling this the receptive side of self because if you look at it from his perspective, it's leaning toward his left side. Now, the receptive side of self is not shown that way here because Eve is considered the receptive side of self. But it's funny because if you think about it, you see Eve there, you see the serpent, looks like a yellow python, coiled around the apple tree, the tree of knowledge. We see the mountain between them rising up. So it's going to be challenging, isn't it? But it also bends toward her, doesn't it? We see the angel above. We see Adam next to what looks like an oak tree, a spindly one at that. So you would think that he's the strength side, isn't he? But however, he's really on the receptive side of self, isn't he? So who's the strong one there? Is it really Adam? Was Adam supposed to be the strength in the partnership, or was it Eve? Eve, who was smart enough to eat from the tree of knowledge so that they could survive. Whereas Adam's just sort of wandering around wondering what the heck to do, just getting, involved with things, but really no direction. So it's Eve that gives him the direction. So that then tells you what the direction needs to be for this guy, doesn't it? And we already know that because the staff is bending toward the receptive. So will is bending toward the receptive. That's what happens when you come into harmony with other people, when you live in truth, in service to a greater truth, in fact. Then we have the death card, a 4 energy, or if you leave it the Master Witch number of 13, like I do. But you're looking at transition and transformation. Another familiar theme, similar to the demarcation line. In fact, you can even kind of see a demarcation line here at the bottom. But you see 2 pillars, don't you? Or not pillars, but 2 towers. You see the castle or town in the background. And you see the sun rising behind that. And so that's saying that there's a new day dawning. You see the king dead on the ground. You see the queen bereft. You see the priest there as death rides through on his white horse. I mean, it can mean a physical death, but generally speaking, it's the death of ego. Because see where the petals are pointed there, downward. The tip is pointed downward. So a new day is dawning, a new transition. It could be a rebirth of sorts, away from, disharmony and back into unity. When you see the two towers, 2 pillars, 2 rock faces, you're going to take the middle way. So you're going to allow. You're going to come into harmony with people. You're going to come into harmony with the self. You're going to begin anew, begin again. So, to locate my runes, let's do a rune though. Let's see. We have a 6. We have a 4, so that's 10. That's 1, and 9 is 10, and a 1. So we have a 1 energy for the cards. That aligns with today's 1 energy. So it was a 10 and it reduced to 1. Same thing with today. Blended with the month, that's a 2. So again, balance. But blended, that means catalyzation, uh, mind, body, spirit alignment. But you're catalyzing something. 3 is catalytic. Kenaz, 6th rune of the Elder Futhark. Make sure that's 6. Yes, because Gebo is 7. But I'm going to just double check because it's Monday and you never know. Yep, it's the 6th. So we're talking higher self energies. Kenaz is the torch. It's the light of spirit informing. It's present in many of the runes when we break them down and see what runes are contained within them, because many of them are just inherently bind runes, you know. And you can see Kenaz. I mean, you go to the next rune, Gebo, and you see Kenaz in all directions. With Othala, you see it that way because Gebo's at the bottom of Othala, and then you have the diamond, Ingu's at the top, and so Kenaz is going within. So going without and going within to create Othala. So you see Kenaz in a lot of these runes, but basically what it's telling us is that the light of spirit is informing the whole thing. You know, given that we have a 22-year, we're talking about the cosmic builder. So we're talking powerful soul energy for change and upheaval. If what we're seeing now is an example of what we don't want, then clearly we're discovering all the reasons why we need to build anew, or to bring the structure more aligned, our fundamental structure more aligned in our spirit instead of an ego. Because unfortunately, with patriarchy being so strong, with the whole idea of our sovereignty being taken away, with the whole idea that, you know, a king is now in place, basically, a dictator is now in place, you see the power structure has changed to the point, or escalated, the imbalance, I should say, has escalated to the point that we have no ability to even help ourselves at this point because the fundamental structure of law has been so corrupted now that we can't even be sure if something happens and we had to call the police, that anything would happen, or at least in our favor, right? If someone's trying to harm us, are they even going to care? And if they do, will the guy that tried to hurt me, will he know someone in justice and they stop it? They just make it go away? This is what we're coping with now. So we have to bring this world back into balance and harmony. We may need to bring the self back into balance and harmony so that we can understand that we need to be that way in order to go forward together, in order to truly put an end to whatever's going on here. So that he doesn't have to be worried anymore, that in fact, you know, it is ending and this new beginning is taking place. And it might be a little weird for a while to get used to one another again, because there used to be a level of discourse between all of us, even people that had differing views. We could still talk to each other, still work together. We can still get along, you know, in a setting that doesn't talk about those views, right? So maybe at your job or a neighbor or whatever, or in your family. You're going to have everybody agree all the time. You're going to have disparate views. We have to be able to accept that about somebody else, that they think something different than I have to. In other words, I have to be able to accept that my husband thinks differently than I do on something, and have that be okay. It's just a different viewpoint. Who knows? He might be right. You know, I might be coming from an emotional place that's not being objective. Maybe he's right. Or maybe I am. Or maybe we're both wrong. And we're going to find out something. But because we talked about it and allowed the space for someone else to have a different thought, that then opens up everything, doesn't it? It doesn't mean you have to give up what you think, but you might. But if you do, it's because you want to. It's because you've discovered something. Maybe not what that other person thinks, but maybe out of both things comes something else, right? We've lost that over the last, what? I don't know. Started about 5 years ago. We've lost it. Maybe it started before that. Maybe we were beginning to lose it with the last president during that time because nobody would work with him and, you know, because he's black. It wasn't because he was a Democrat. It wasn't because there was a Democrat in the office. It was because he's African American. That's the only reason. It was racism. So I suppose we started seeing it escalate, particularly in 2010. So what, 10 years ago, maybe. But the bottom line is, we'll probably go here first. It'll end. We'll be glancing back going, really? Is it? But if we come into alignment with one another and we allow things to transition to where they need to go, back into harmony, back into balance with one another, then maybe we can talk to each other again. And wouldn't that be a great thing to happen? Let's do our geomancy rune to close out. Well, that is, of course, if I don't drop it on the floor and lose it. I did that with the Elder Futhart video I did on Saturday. At the very end, I dropped one of my runes, and it's one of my Hawthorne runes, the kind that I use here for this reading. And they're my favorite set, and I was just freaked because I couldn't find it, I finally found it. It had fallen on the floor and jumped up about this far onto a shelf on this desk I'm using. And it was all the way to the back, I'm pulling out everything. I'm on the floor laying down, lights are on, I've got little spotlight things, LED spotlight things. I'm looking for it. And then I finally find it. It takes me about 10 minutes, but I finally found it. It's like, oh my God, this is going to be easy. This is populous. I can't, of all the runes, I can't lose my Hawthorne ones. Hawthorne, I made it from a branch off one of the Hawthorne trees. And the Hawthorne tree is both a fairy and a witch tree. And so you have to ask permission, but they know me. So, I've done Hawthorne ones. I've done Hawthorne runes. I make Hawthorne medicine. I mean, I love Hawthorne. Hawthorne's cool because it's an adaptogen. And what that means, if you don't know, is that it will do whatever needs to be done. Now, it's a mild cardiac tonic type of an herb, of a plant, and you use the berry. You can also use the leaves and flowers, but I leave them. I'll have a spring tea when the leaves are out and they're starting to flower. I'll take a little bit and use them in tea, but mostly I just leave them, and they're prolific. They're going to come up everywhere, right? And so I've got a lot of Hawthorne trees over the years. I got a lot. I got 2 really huge ones, but I've got some up the driveway that are producing berries now. So I've been getting my berries from those, because the other ones are so big. I can only get the stuff from the bottom. But it's a wonderful. You can take it as a tincture in your tea, and it will help calm the heart. If it's too slow, it makes it go a little faster. If it's too fast, it brings it down. And that's what you mean by adaptogen. It will make it level, however it needs to do that. And so I love Hawthorne. We made some wine out of it, out of the berries. It's just lovely. It's so light, and it has kind of a sweet flavor to it. And it's just wonderful. But anyway, it's kind of a populous herb. All passive influence here. When you see dual dots in geomancy, it's a passive influence. Single dots are an active influence. So the opposite of this would be via, or a new direction. It would be all single dots. That'd be a new direction. But populous is about aligning with the flow. So it's going to depend, do you want to, have that flow reflect balance and transition, or transition to balance? Do you want that to happen? Or do you want to be in the flow of whatever was going on prior to this? And I think that when you think about flow and transition, you're really talking about, again, which direction do you want to go in? And so inherent in this is directionality. When you're going along with the flow, that's the direction you're going. But with any luck here, this is going to talk about a transition into unity and the reimagining or reawareness of unity consciousness that we express in our lives together. So hopefully that's what we're going to see here. Monday's a day for change, water element, so that's change, adaptation, Perhaps we're adapting to our new awareness today, in sync with other people for once. One last thing and I'll close. The Binman brothers were escorted off of the grounds of the White House on Friday. Gordon Sondland, the ambassador, involved in all of this nonsense, was also fired, told to come back. He was fired. Because I guess that's what you do when people tell the truth about you, and then, you know, you go and you retaliate. There's actually a law against doing that, so we'll see where that one goes. Likely it won't go anywhere, because it doesn't go anywhere at all anyway, right? There has to be, I guess there were some senators that went and talked to him about not firing Sondland, but they apparently didn't say anything on behalf of Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, who's a true patriot, and his twin brother, Yevgeny, who's also worked at the National Security Council. So both brothers had to leave. You know, I think his brother is still in the military, and so if so, then they've just been reassigned. He's having to be, his whole family's being protected. I think still. I'm not sure that that should end right now. But we watched as two patriots were told to go, simply because, I mean, on the one hand, I suppose you can understand it. You know, if someone's done something, you know, that's caused you grief, you know, you're not going to want them around. Problem is that the guy's guilty. It doesn't change in the fact, because the Senate chose not to do its job, to not find him guilty and throw him out. Just because they didn't do that doesn't mean that that shouldn't have been what happened. So I guess it's up to voters now to do what the Senate wouldn't do. And throw them out too, if you can. Because some of them are up for re-election. So, you know, the people that are running against them are excellent candidates. So, you know, if you're tired of the nonsense, then vote for the other guy or the other girl. I think that it's time that we got rid of this negative energy and hostile energy that's been keeping us down and keeping us from progressing. The only people that progress in this country are the truly rich people. They're really rich. And not even, and that doesn't really even include your basic, you know, low-level millionaire, because that can go at any time, right? It's the real wealth, you know, the people that don't file income taxes the way everyone else does. You know, they don't look at, in other words, they're not filing it based on income that they're earning every day. It's not about a paycheck with them. It's about wealth. Inherent wealth that they own, and keeps going up and up and up while everyone suffers, basically. The new budget that's coming out is going to go after the social safety net that he promised he wouldn't do. Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, SNAP program, people, if this goes through, if this happens, you're basically going to be looking at a level of austerity that the country of Greece tried to do, and it destroyed them. So people will, a lot of this is going to hit veterans. A lot of this is going to hit, because believe it or not, I don't know, I would venture to guess veterans do too, but active duty military use food stamps sometimes, because they can't make it. So if you take it all away, if you affect seniors, if you affect the disabled, people will not survive. And that's where we are. That's what this man wants to do. All the things he promised, he told oh yeah, vote for me, I won't do any of that. All knowing that he would, right? He knew what was going to happen. He just lied. Again, the long con is still going on. And we have to get out of it. And Populus is telling us the way out. As are the major cards. Transition back to balance, folks. It's the only way forward. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. And come back tomorrow. Click subscribe. I'd love you to do that. And again, the correspondences is astrological information for noon. That's when I do that one for us, for noon every day. If you're working magic, you know, that's all there. Everything you need is there to All the correspondences you need for Monday are there, and everything astrological that's current is there for today, and or will be when I write it. And basically, you know, if it's just easier to look at that than your grimoire, then you know I find it easier just to look at a cheat sheet. It's like, okay, what do I need to do today for this? So it's all there in case you want to look at that. Again, other things are up on the blog, Weekly Rune and Moon. If you want to check out the more about runes, you can look at that series. Both the first and second parts are up on Patreon, and the third one I'll probably do next Saturday. I just kind of been doing them weekly, and it'll go up then. And I'm only going to do 3 parts. Well, I'm doing the eights basically. You can group them into eights, and there's 24, so it's 3 weeks worth. You know, 3 videos worth. So in any event, I think it breaks down well that way. Otherwise, you know, it'd be like a 3-hour deal. And who wants to do that? So I'd lose my voice. You'd lose interest. It just, I don't know. So I just did them in terms of in the groupings of 8. And, you know, and then maybe next time we'll do tarot or something. Maybe we'll do the major arcana because we can break that down into 3 groupings as well. So only it's 7s. So anyway, thanks so much for watching. Come back tomorrow, and we'll look again at what the cards and the runes have to say and how they can impact our lives. So thank you so much. Be good to yourself, be good to one another, and blessed be.